Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindy Chavez here. Today is Wednesday, August the 1st, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second Daily Dose of Happy. And this is the second week that Cindy gets to do the second Daily Dose of Happy with me on a Wednesday. And you're not quite used to it yet, are you?
No, well, I was over here laughing when you introduced us and you said, today is Wednesday, August 1st. I heard that this morning. And so it was like Groundhog Day. You know, like, oh, no.
It's the day that never ends.
Might feel like that. But no, it's wonderful. I was saying earlier to you, it always feels so weird when I'm here in the afternoon. But it's not a bad kind of weird. It's just a different kind of like,
right.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, you're so used to doing the morning podcast, so of course it makes sense.
Yeah.
I have to say this has been, I was telling you before the show, this has been an interesting day, and we both agreed that that's an old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. But today I got to experience the real good opportunity to practice I love my life, because it's a wonderful company known as QuickBooks that does the accounting software. Basically, they upgraded one of their features regarding the creation of statements about a week and a half ago, and when they did, they broke it. And so people all across America and around the world can't create statements because of that. Well, they fixed it today, except for one little feature that, unfortunately, we use. So I am now in the process of saying, I love my life, as I create all these statements by hand, manually. And the one thing that has kept me going is the tremendous gratitude that I don't have to do this all the time. I just have to do it this one time, and then it's done. And then once they fix the feature, it'll be, oh, thank goodness for that.
Right. It's kind of like one of those things that once we are back in the flow of things working the way that we want them to work, we can be even doubly appreciative.
Oh, yes.
We look back and recognize how, don't want it to be like that all the time. Woo, it's kind of good luck, bad luck, right? Good luck, bad luck.
Oh, yeah, definitely that. And it's also a really good opportunity to practice not going into that downward spiral. Because I could easily have done that. That would have been really easy, right? Oh, geez, I can't believe they did that. You know, all that kind of stuff. Getting on the phone, chewing them out. You know, how do you expect me to stay in business?
Right. It's made me think about, and I know you're doing some other Abraham Hicks books at the same time that we've been doing this one.
Right.
And I know sometimes you'll bring up like, oh, this is a little different take than the other book. Not that it's a different message. It's just a different wording or something.
Right.
And one of the things that, I mean, maybe I just haven't noticed it, but often in some of the other books that I've read of Abraham Hicks, they speak a little more about contrast. And even that particular word, I just don't recall it coming up a lot in this book.
That's true, isn't it?
Yeah, but they often talk about, because all of us, generally we try to avoid contrast as much as possible. And when contrast does happen, we resist it. And But I think that their message generally is not that.
Oh, right.
It's like, no, it's like contrast is a natural part of the process. Contrast is not something that we should be labeling as like bad, like we never want it. It gives us valuable information. It helps us decide what we don't want, so we know what we do want, and all of that. And so I'm trying to do that too, is look at contrast in a different way when it shows up, and not go, like you said, into that downward spiral.
Oh, yeah, which is very easy to do. But you're right. That is what the message is, that when you really get down to the brass tacks, I guess you'd call them, the fact is that one of our really big goals is not so much to like the stuff that we don't like, but rather to appreciate what comes out of it that we do like. And that takes some discipline. It takes some concentration. It takes a little focus to do that. It takes focus on what it is about the contrast that I like, and I'm not going to give any mind to the part that I don't like. I'm not going to dislike it. I'm not going to necessarily like it. I don't have to like it, but I'm going to respect it and appreciate the fact that it provides the flip side, the part that I do like, that I can attract into my life.
And it gives us good information.
It does.
Like I'm pretty sure that Abraham has said and would say, as much as we humans try to avoid contrast, Abraham would say, you didn't come here expecting to never have contrast. Like you were fully aware that there was going to be contrast, and it's just part of the process, right? I mean, so that's the mindset that I want to be in. Not that I want to attract more contrast, but
there's plenty of it. It's not like you have to go looking for it, really.
You don't, you really don't. It's going to find you. I mean, because welcome to Earth, and it's part of the process, and it does give us good information. It helps us clarify what we do want. I was thinking about this over the last week, the idea that the clearer we get about what it is we want, the higher the likelihood that we will attract it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, you can't have what you want if you don't know what it is.
That's true. Yeah. And Joel, actually, I love the way Joel has his take on this. He likes to point out that there are a couple of different ways you can experience contrast. You can experience it as struggle, and or you can experience it as suffering. And to him, there's a huge difference there. He says, from his view, struggling is actually, it can be a very good thing. Struggling is how you create more expansion of the universe. It's how you improve your life. It's how you learn new skills. It's how you make yourself stronger. It's how you create that springboard that takes you to ever new heights when the good things come in. Whereas suffering is an emotional choice that people make that they don't really have to make, because you may have to deal with the struggle, but you don't have to suffer about it. And it's a really fine distinction, but it's a good one, I think.
The saying that I've always heard about that is that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. And sometimes I think that pain, like we're wired for pain. Like we touch a hot fire and it burns. I mean, we come into life wired for pain. Suffering happens because of the stories that we tell ourselves about the pain, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a story that Joel tells about how he had, I think it was his gallbladder out a number of years ago. And he went to the hospital, had the surgery. Surgery was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And he woke up in post-op, and he was lying next to another guy in the next bed over who had also just had a gallbladder operation. So you have your perfect test case here, because Joel, he felt the pain, but the way he likes to tell the story, he works out in the gym all the time. He's used to pushing his muscles until they're really warmed up and heated and feeling some pain and so forth. He doesn't mind it all. He doesn't even notice it anymore. So feeling a little pain from the surgery, it's like, okay, well, this is nothing new. I'm used to this. And an hour later, his doctor came in to check on him. How are you doing? He says, I'm great. Can I go now? And the doctor says, no, no. You have to stay here. You have to stay overnight. We got to at least watch you and observe you and make sure you're doing okay. He says, I'm doing fine. Well, they actually had this long struggle of a discussion. And struggle, I use the word advisedly, because Joel was struggling to get out of there. He didn't want to stay. And he finally won the discussion just by wearing the doctor down. The doctor said, fine, okay, go, get out of here, go. And so Joel left, and he went home, and he slept just fine. I don't think he even used painkiller that night. And he woke up the next day and realized he'd left his charging cable for his smartphone at the hospital. So he went back to the hospital to get it, went back to the same room. The other guy was still there in pain, suffering like crazy because of the pain from his gallbladder operation. And Joel comes in and says, hey, how you doing? Grabs his cable and starts to walk out. And the guy says, hey, wait a minute. And Joel says, yeah? He says, why aren't you in bed? Why aren't you didn't you experience the same pain I did? And Joel said, well, yeah, but I just don't suffer it. I mean, I just got past it. And it just blew the guy's mind. He didn't know what to do with it. This guy was just totally wrapped up basically in what his doctor had told him. You need to recover. This is going to be painful. It's going to take a while. And Joel never bought into it. So maybe pain is inevitable, but you can't convince Joel of that because he doesn't even feel it.
Well, I also see though that, I do think that people have different pain thresholds. Mm-hmm. I think some people are much more sensitive to it. And then also, we all have a different story about it.
Well, that's
so Joel goes to the gym and, the whole no pain, no gain kind of thing. Like for him, he knows that the pain of his muscles breaking down means, hey, this is working. I'm making my muscles stronger. And so he has this story about pain that's probably completely different than the other patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says it himself. It's not like he doesn't feel the pain. He feels it. He just doesn't mind.
Yeah. That reminds me of That reminds me of the was it Lawrence of Arabia, the movie
Mm-hmm.
where he's burning his hand with a match?
Oh yeah. Was
Do you
that
know
the
the part I'm
movie?
talking about?
I know the scene. I couldn't remember it was that movie, but okay, I
And
remember
he
the
like
scene.
says something just like that. He says, "Oh, I didn't. It's not that it doesn't hurt; it's that I
Mm-hmm.
don't mind."
Yeah, right. And I remember the first time I thought that I saw that I thought you're crazy. You're just a crazy man. But then I heard about Wendy Dillard and others who walk coals, at a Tony Robbins event, and I say, well, you're crazy too.
Yeah, I have not done that. I have not done that. I don't have any desire to do
Neither do
that.
I. I really am not interested. She did it 4 times, Cindy.
Wow.
She did it 4 times. And
Wow.
she actually, there's a episode that we did a couple weeks ago for people who really want to get the details about it. I don't remember which one it was, but she really goes into tremendous detail about how they really condition your mind getting ready for it. So by the time you do it, you basically are not in your same level of awareness that you normally are, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, I can totally see. I can see that. Um, it was funny. Somebody shared a video with me. I don't even know how to tell you how to find it, but it reminds me of that. It was a baby in its parents' lap, and the doctor is giving it a shot. And I mean a little baby, like months
Mm,
old baby.
right?
And it's just in a diaper. And the doctor, an older gentleman, has the needle, the syringe, and he's very lightly kind of tickling the baby with it. And he's making funny sounds at the baby all over on the
Mm,
forehead and the arms and the legs and the tummy. And the baby finally kind of starts chuckling and laughing. And as soon as he gets the baby, which took a little while, to the place where the baby is just really kind of giggling,
mm-hmm.
he gives the baby the shot in the leg. And the baby never noticed.
Mm.
And then he keeps tickling it. And you hear the mother say, "Are you kidding me?" And I showed it to someone who said, that doctor hypnotized that baby. And I said, exactly. Exactly. The baby was in a completely different mindset.
That's right. That's true.
And I think even the parents, right? The parents were probably relaxed. They're laughing. The baby's laughing. The
Mm-hmm.
doctor's making funny noises. Everybody's relaxed. There's not that vibration of fear, because we have that vibration of fear when we're worried that something's going to be painful for our child.
That's true.
Or, I mean, if you've ever taken even a pet to the vet and had to hold them while the vet did something, everybody's tense. Everybody's, there's a lot of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, you go into, you can reach a different state of mind where your body reacts in a different way.
That's true. It's very, very true. There are
I'll
lots of
have to go
examples
listen
of it.
to, I'll have to go listen to Wendy tell the story about that.
It's really something, I tell you. Yeah, but I can think of lots of stories, lots of examples like that. They kind of amaze you when you first hear about them, but you hear enough of them and you start to say, there's something to this stuff. I mean, and I've experienced them. I can remember seeing one with a child. My lovely niece Michaela, who's getting married in September, but when she was a very, very young girl, I remember a time when we were living at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia, where they were also living at the time, and she came over to visit. And actually, no, it was yeah. Well, it was very early, actually. Now that I think about it, she was only like 3 or 4 years old at this point, so this was quite a few years ago. And I remember that she had a fall or something like that, and there were 3 or 4 of us in the living room. And fortunately, none of us bought into the idea of, oh, poor Michaela. And I don't remember exactly what the looks on our faces were or what we said, but all of us treated it like it was nothing, and so she did. And it was really, really fascinating to watch and to be a part of, because she just...
If everyone in the room goes, "Oh no, are you okay?"
Yep. Different experience entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually seen little children that didn't have the reaction until all the adults had the reaction, and then they burst into tears.
In fact, Sean Aker, Sean Aker. Sean tells the story in his 10-minute TED Talk about how he was playing with his little sister, and they're playing war. Her little My Little Ponies against his GI Joes, and they're on top of a bunk bed, and in the middle of the cavalry charge, she falls off the bunk bed and lands on all fours, which really disturbed Sean because his parents had charged him with taking care of his sister, and because they were going to take a nap. And now all of a sudden, thump, this sound, and she was about to start wailing. So he did the only thing he could think of, with his fevered little child's brain. He says to his sister, "No, don't cry, don't cry. Don't you realize what just happened?" Because it turns out his sister had always wanted to be a pony. And he says, "You landed on all fours. A real human can't do that. I think you must be a pony." And you could see the conflict on her face. Should she cry? Should she get excited? Getting excited went out, and she scampered back on top of the bunk with all the grace of a little pony with a broken leg.
Oh my goodness, that's a great story. Wow. So, and what we've been talking about today since this whole conversation, pain versus suffering, and the reaction we have to the stories we tell.
Mm.
And so, it's so interesting to look at those stories.
Oh, yeah.
She just changed her story from being an accident victim to being a pony, which was much better for her.
Much better for him, too. He didn't get in trouble.
Yeah, for him, too, right? Exactly.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, let's see. We made some good progress in the book this morning, and we're up to a section now. Well, actually, before we do that, I suppose we should do our little announcement, shouldn't we? Because we always do that around this time.
Yes, let's make sure that we tell everybody how to subscribe.
Because most of our listeners are subscribers, and we love that. And we love it when we hear from them, too. And we have been hearing from them more and more frequently, which is really nice. And we know that they're listening because we can see what happens whenever the downloads happen and how much gets downloaded and how many get downloaded. And we say, yeah, there's a nice pattern going on here. But if you're new to the podcast, maybe this is your first episode, we want to invite you to become a subscriber. It's really easy. Doesn't cost you a thing. You just go to the homepage of our website at loatoday.net. Right there on the homepage below the player for listening to the live broadcast, you'll find all the instructions for how to subscribe. Just follow those instructions. Takes about a minute, and when you're done, you get all of our 45 per month episodes coming straight to your smartphone or tablet every single month for you to play whenever you want to. And you can be like Rowena in Australia, who is a week and a half behind, but she still struggles valiantly to try to keep up and catch up on us.
I still think it's so funny that she said she knows that you have a dream of having podcasts that are 24/7, but that she would hate that because she would have fear of missing out.
That's right. Yes. That was great. I love that. Well, I'm going to try to challenge her too. I'm hoping my dream comes true. Then she has to really listen all the time. She has to just leave it turned on at all hours, right? Right.
So when you subscribe and when you're there, then you can share.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Every single social media icon you can imagine is there, so you won't have trouble finding one.
Right. And then if you're listening live, you can call us or join us using the Zoom platform.
Oh, we love that when people do it. It doesn't happen a lot, but when it happens, it is fun. So if the spirit moves you and you feel inclined, I even invited Rowena to. I calculated what times we would be on where she is in Australia, and she said, "Yeah, I'm sometimes up at 6 a.m. or sometimes I'm up as late as 10 p.m. Those are the two times that correlate with our afternoon and morning shows." She might just call in one of these times. The only thing that stands in the way there is she's a little bit on the shy side, but maybe that's true for other listeners too. At one point, one of them's going to break through anyway.
Oh yeah, don't be shy because we're just like harmless.
we're silly, but we're harmless.
Very silly. We can be silly, but that's okay. So we're in the book Money and the Law of Attraction, and we are at a section called Will My Success Uplift Others? And, when I read those words and that question, that just says to me, that's a win-win.
It is. It's terrific.
When I can have success and it uplifts other people, what's better than that?
And this is also kind of an unusual chapter because it's all Jerry. There's no Abraham in this chapter, in this subtopic. I mean, this is just really unusual. You don't get this very often in the books.
Yeah.
But Jerry's laying out a little foundation for what will come up in the next subhead. So that's what we're doing here. So I'll read this one. You can do the Abraham in the next one. Does that sound good?
Awesome. Go for it.
So Jerry says, my freedom has always been what was most important to me. So I've never been willing to give up much of it for money. I always said that I had very little interest in money because I wasn't willing to give up my freedom for it. But then, over time, that leaving no footprints in the sand feeling made me question if there was really something more to life than just having fun. Shortly after that awareness, I found the book Think and Grow Rich. And even though the idea of thinking or of growing rich was something that I would have denied having any interest in, the book got my attention, and I felt a strong draw toward it. I picked it up, and the hair stood up on my body as if I had found something that would have major meaning in my life. The book said, "Make a decision about what you want." It was a seemingly simple statement, but I felt the power of it in a strange and new way. For the first time in my life, I consciously started making decisions about what I wanted and writing them down. Like, I want to be self-employed. I want a business of my own. I want no place of business. I don't want my foot nailed to the floor. I want no employees. I don't want that kind of responsibility. What I want is freedom. I wanted to be able to control my income. I wanted to be mobile so I could travel or be anywhere that I wanted to be. I wanted my work, this is in italics, I wanted my work to be something where every life I touched, I elevated in some way, or just let people be where they were, but that no one would ever be diminished as a result of knowing me. People used to laugh when I'd tell them that. They'd say, "Oh, Jerry, you're such a dreamer. There's no such thing as that." And I said, "Well, there has to be. Emerson said you wouldn't have the desire if you didn't have the ability to achieve it," and I believed that. And so I really expected somewhere along the line opportunities to show up. Within about 30 days of my clarifying what I wanted, I met a man who showed me a business that I could take to California and start. And it answered everything I was asking for. And so for the next years of my life, that business really took hold. And again, it fulfilled the essence of everything that I'd written down that I wanted.
Oh, there's so much good stuff in this story. You know, what stood out to me when you were reading was when he talked about picking up the book Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the book said, make a decision about what you want.
Right.
He said it was a seemingly simple statement, but I felt the power of it in a strange and new way. So for the first time in my life, I consciously started making decisions about what I wanted and writing them down. And, you know, I was talking earlier that this past week, I had really been focused on that idea that the clearer we get about what we want, the higher the probability that we attract it in an easier way.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had been doing that, just writing things down, like getting very, very clear, because what I was thinking about was the difference between being interested in something or like wishing for something or like saying, oh, that would be nice. You know, like someone suggesting something and you saying, oh, yeah, that would be nice, right?
They really have different feel, though, don't they? They're very, very different feeling statements.
Right. Exactly. Like someone may say, oh, you know, my husband and I are going to take a cruise or we're going on a trip to here. And you say, oh, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really ever think about it again.
Right. Right.
There's a real different feeling to that than there is, you know, you want to visit this place and you think about it every day.
Yeah.
And you, right. It's just so different.
Very.
It's the difference between being interested in something and like being committed to it.
Passionate even.
Yeah. And clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like very clear about it. And it's one of the things that like when someone tells me, it's funny, he talks about freedom. When someone tells me that they want freedom or they want X amount of money or whatever, and I ask them, well, what would you do if you had that? A lot of times people do say, well, I would travel. And I always ask them, really? Okay, so where would you go? And, you know, some people have to think about it. Well, I've kind of always wanted to go, you know, but other people, they know where they want to go. And to me, it's a different energy.
Well, it is.
To be really clear.
Oh, yeah.
To know. And I felt that so strongly when you were reading this, is that he got really clear. I think it's amazing that he made a list of what he wanted. He wrote it down. He got very clear about it, and then it happened.
Yeah, it's a really good point because the clarity makes all the difference. What we're really talking about here is asking for something without resistance as opposed to asking for something with resistance. Again, a concept they don't really talk about a lot in this book, the concept of resistance. They do talk about it in other books. But that for me was the missing factor. That was the missing link when I was trying to come to terms with all this stuff, that resistance thing. Because I first of all, I didn't realize it was even there. And once I heard about it, then my second point was, I'm not resisting anything.
Well, and I think that's why it's so important to remember, too, that resistance shows up in two different ways. Sometimes I just call it the yes, yes, and the no, no.
Okay.
Because sometimes resistance is no, 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 I don't want that. I don't want that. And sometimes resistance is, oh, I want that. I want that. It has to be just like that. I want that. That has to happen. It has to come out that way. It has to, I want that outcome. So
yes.
Attachment to an outcome, which feels like yes, 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 but it's a desperate yes, yes, right? It's
It
not
is.
that open, allowing, full body yes, yes, I want that. It's it has to be exactly like that kind of yes. It's a needy, desperate, clingy kind of yes, and that just doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It's more resistance.
It is. And I think that's why, for myself, because I had a lot of trouble distinguishing between those within myself. I mean, theoretically, I know the difference for sure. But in terms of experiencing it, I often had trouble distinguishing which was which because I really wasn't clear about what it was I wanted in the first place, but I didn't realize that. And so I was just kind of struggling with the whole thing and not really sure what to do and not feeling comfortable and stuff wasn't really working, and so I was starting to doubt and oh geez, it's just not a very pleasant place to be. So that's when I followed the Abraham advice of go general. That's not the way they say it, but basically just look to be happy. Just look to feel good. Just get into alignment. Get there. Make that your goal. And I have to say it's good advice because I have gotten to the point now where a large portion of the time I am feeling good. Now, can I honestly say that all of my dreams have come true? No, but a lot of them have.
Well, I feel like that is such great advice when you're in a place where, number one, you're not feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, you don't really know what it is you want.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, resistance, which it's kind of in a circle because resistance is what feels so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so if we're in a place where we're really attached to an outcome and it's really feeling bad because we don't have the outcome, which we've talked about before, like let's just say money, that's really always going to be because we're focused on the lack of it.
And ironically, if you had asked me, I would have told you, well, I am clear about it.
Right.
That would have been my answer.
And I think that's that distinction because we say, this is what I want. I want more money. And I'm very clear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, why are you resisting the flow of money? Well, I'm not resisting it. I want it. I'm open to it. I want it to come in. But the predominant thought in our mind is, I want it to come in because I don't have any.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Right.
It's like, okay, wait a minute, because now we just shifted to look at the lack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the story often goes, but this is the true, real story. Hey, look at my bank account. There's nothing there. I really do have this lack. Yes, we know.
We got that part the first time.
We got that part. And now we're trying to and so your advice there about, look, just go general. It's like, this is the place where we go, you know what? Let's just drop the whole idea of thinking about money and thinking about lack and thinking about how do we get it to come in or whatever, fill in the blank with whatever topic you want.
Right.
It doesn't have to be money, but what would make you feel better right now in this moment?
Exactly. Yeah. And it turns
out
that
you do right now in this moment that would feel better. Maybe it's put music on, whatever, right now in the moment. That's the thing.
And it turns out that is also the way that you learn the most about how this stuff works. Because when I started going general, quote unquote, when I started just focusing on how I felt and not worrying about attracting this, that, or the other thing, as little things happened, and I noticed that my attitude, my new higher energy, happier attitude was producing new results. Situations were playing out differently from the way they would have played out in the past. It was the nuances I started to notice, the nuances of just slight differences that produce very different results. When you start seeing that, it actually becomes very reinforcing. And it makes me want to, it has made me want to just stay on the path of, okay, let's get into the happy mode. Let's get into the happy mode, because I'm picking up all this really cool information along the way, until I eventually get to the point where I am so clear that now when I put out a request, boom, there it is.
It also reminds me of going back to the emotional scale, is that there's a lot of steps on that staircase. And oftentimes when we're way at the bottom, full of resistance, very unhappy with whatever's going on, we want to wave a magic wand and pop up to the top of the staircase.
Oh, yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way. And it's okay. It's okay to give yourself permission to just feel a little bit better.
The really ironic part for me is something that I experienced just really within the last 2 weeks or so. And it revolves around money. My wife's gardening business has become very successful over the years, but this year, despite the fact that we have record income, the expenses are also record. So our net is actually very poor compared to what it should be. And when that happens, I mean, I know what the reasons are. I know why it's been happening. But when that happens, it really takes a toll on your ability to stay focused on feeling good. You can just feel the suck down, right? You can just feel yourself being sucked into that place of, oh, there's not going to be enough money. We're not going to get through the winter. Oh, there's terrible things are going to happen. I can't believe this.
The downward spiral.
Working so hard. Yeah, it's really easy to go there, despite the fact that literally we're having a record year. I mean, think about how ironic that is. Right. We're having a record year, and there I am getting ready to go into a spiral. And I recognized it. Well, my point is, the reason I recognize that is because I've been going general all this time. That process of going general gave me enough experience with what it feels like and what happens when you're feeling good to recognize when I wasn't feeling good and to recognize where the pattern was going to. I would probably not have caught that one 5 years ago.
You know, I feel like when you get to that place where you start recognizing, you start making really different choices.
Yes.
Like, I know that the choice of conversation may be different.
Self-talk.
Because you recognize, okay, if I get into this conversation, I have a better chance of going down this downward spiral. So I'm going to change the conversation. And you start doing it instead of just recognizing it in hindsight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think there's also sort of a parallel thing that goes at the same time, because while on the one hand I was feeling exactly what you're describing, experiencing that, you could practically just see the downward spiral. You see it preparing itself, getting ready for you to just, dive right in and jump in and enjoy the ride down, so to speak. And simultaneously, it was almost like I could see them side by side. Simultaneously, I could also see the path, not so much the path, but I could see the result of tremendous success, because I can actually plot it. I mean, I'm a numbers guy, so I'm good at plotting numbers in a business. And I could plot it both ways. I could plot it so that by the time we close the business at the end of October, because we're a seasonal business, right? We run April to October. By the time we close the business in October, we don't have enough money to get through the winter. We've destroyed our savings, and we're basically in a bad place. I could see that path from this point right here where we are right now. And simultaneously, I could also see the path where we come out way in advance. I could see both at the same time.
That's amazing. And then you get to choose the story you want to tell.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is so many times in our lives, we don't recognize that it's up to us to make the choice. Because if you started telling the downward spiral story on a regular basis from right now, I guarantee that's what would end up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. And it's the easy one to go to. As uncomfortable as it is, it's the easy one to go to. I mean, that's where I've
Well,
been a large
it's
part of my
usually
life.
the easy one to go to. And not only that, but it's the one that other people will want to jump right into the conversation with,
Oh, of course.
you
Because
know?
you can sympathize with that one, right?
Right. Right. It's that whole misery loves company
Misery
thing.
loves company.
There's
Oof.
a word, right? I thought about it. It was like the word commiserate.
Commiserate, that's right. Yeah.
And people like to do it. I mean,
Ugh.
because it's the easy path and it's it happens so naturally. And that's the one that I got really aware of to start avoiding it,
Mm.
to change the conversation. Because, man, when people join in that conversation with you, that energy will pull you down so fast. It only takes a little bit of that energy because it's really heavy
It
and it
is.
weighs everything down. And then it's hard to climb back out. And once you get down to that energy level, it's hard to see your way out of it.
Yeah.
Really difficult. So
And
I
that,
think
that
it's wonderful what you're talking about, the the reaction that it's had, the effect that it's had on you
mm,
to learn how to go general has allowed you to be able to see these two parallel stories and then just decide which one you want to go with.
yeah, just. Even the just part isn't easy, but at least now I get the choice clearly in my conscious mind, and I like that. At least I got the choice now. I didn't feel like I had the
Right?
choice before. Now I've got the choice. And
Well,
it also gives me appreciation too for what Jerry was talking about, because Jerry didn't have any of that. I mean, Jerry had such a clear picture of his positive spiral. He didn't even consider the negative. He didn't even spend any time there.
well, when Jerry
Wow.
tells this story that he wrote down, I think this is interesting because I don't know what the business in California was, but he talks about, I wrote them down. I want to be self-employed. I want a business of my own. I want no place of business. I don't
Mm,
want my foot nailed to the floor. I want no employees. I don't want that kind of responsibility. I want freedom. I wanted to be mobile so I could travel or be anywhere that I wanted to be. I wanted my work to be something where every life I touched, I elevated in some way.
hmm
Well, his work with Esther and the Abraham Hicks books and tours, it was exactly that.
Well, at least at the early stages. Now they do actually have employees, but you're right. At the very beginning, there weren't any. It was just the freedom of it.
So whatever he did in California, I mean, what I'm saying is that these were things he really wanted.
Yeah.
And even after whatever this business was, he continued on in that vein. And maybe he got more comfortable with having employees, but he definitely still traveled. He definitely still was in the business of uplifting people, right?
Oh yeah, in a big way.
I think that's cool.
It is cool. It's great. And actually, it goes on in the next section. Why don't we go do the next section? And Abraham actually gets a chance to talk this time. But the next section is entitled, I Want Freedom, Growth, and Joy. Jerry says, I didn't say it had to be something I was capable of doing or that I had the talent or the ability or the intelligence for it. I just said, this is what I want. So his question
Ooh,
is, can any of us have that? Can any of us have whatever we want once we clarify what it is that we want?
that's a great question.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Abraham says, yes. If this life experience has inspired the desire within you, this life experience has the wherewithal to fulfill it down to the very last detail. I love that Abraham used the word wherewithal. That's kind of an old fashioned word. You don't hear it
It
too
is,
much
isn't
anymore.
it? Yeah.
You had been coming to those decisions about what you wanted over a long period of time because of the life experiences that you'd been living. Your decision point of focusing upon those decisions and writing them down in a comprehensive manner caused an emphasizing of your belief regarding them. And when your desires and beliefs come together, expectation occurs. And once expectation for anything is within you, it then comes quickly into your experience. Being
Yeah.
free was the most important element in the desires that you had held for some time. And when you saw something that you believed would not threaten your desire for freedom, but had the potential of bringing income, you then allowed your desire for more income to expand. Where previously Anything that you perceived as having the potential to dampen your freedom, you repelled immediately. You were all born with a triad of intentions pulsing within you: freedom, growth, and joy. Freedom is the basis of that which you are, because everything that comes to you comes in response to the thoughts you think. And no one has control over the thoughts that you think other than you. When joy is your dominant quest, so that you gently train your thoughts into alignment with who you really are, all resistance subsides. And you then allow the expansion or growth that your life experience has inspired within you.
So freedom, growth, and joy. I have
Freedom,
to admit, I like
growth,
those. Those are
and
all
joy.
appealing. Those are really appealing to me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that basically at some point, Jerry rejected anything that he had a belief would impede his freedom.
Mm.
So he thought that having employees would affect his freedom. He thought that having a place of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
He described it as his foot nailed to the floor.
Yeah, right.
Right? He wanted to be mobile. I mean, some people might not feel that those are things that impede their freedom. We all have a different idea, right? And so anything that we have a belief around is just going to affect the outcome for us.
It does. And I'm sympathetic to his desire for that kind of freedom. I can't say that I have, and I'm choosing these words very carefully. I can't say that I have successfully vibrated to that. But that doesn't mean I didn't want it. It just means I haven't really gotten to the point where I felt the pure version of it. I felt the half-lack version, but not the pure version of it. And I'm not sure I really know what the pure version of that feels like. But intellectually, it's very appealing.
It's interesting that those are the three things that they say we're all born with.
Yeah.
Or born with the intention or desire for.
Right.
Freedom, growth, and joy. Because freedom comes up a lot in a coaching conversation when you're trying to ask someone that we all think we want certain things, and they're all different, because we're all different. But basically underneath those things, it's like, well, I want more money. Well, what would having money give you? Well, if I had more money, I'd be able to travel. Okay, well, what would being able to travel give you? If you keep digging down and asking that question, what we usually get to is freedom or peace.
Yep.
And we figure, if you don't have what you want and you're feeling a lot of resistance or even a little bit of resistance, that affects your peace.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have peace of mind when you're feeling resistance.
Very
believe
true.
me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like those are the things that everybody wants. That makes sense. So that really makes sense to me. Freedom, growth, and joy.
It does. And as you were saying that, it also occurred to me just how much lack many of us feel regarding freedom. And I know that just because of the way people talk about it. I mean, most people, you run into it all the time because you're a life coach. You get people, you just described how you get people who, when you get really down to the deepest level, what they want is freedom. And I suspect that one of the reasons you have to drill so hard is because they, on some level, really don't believe they're going to get it. They really don't believe that they can really have it. It's one of those things that's elusive. Well, that means they're, like so many people, and me many times in my life, they're at a place of lack of freedom as their dominant modality. They just believe in it. And it's not like I intended, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to believe in a lack of freedom. No, it's not. That's not what people do. But nevertheless, isn't that the impact of it? Isn't that the result of so many of the decisions that people make? They decide, well, like kind of like what Jerry was saying there. If he got a career going or got a business going where he had employees, he wouldn't be free anymore.
Right.
His freedom would be gone. It was a definite lack of freedom mentality he had.
Well, and yet a lot of people, like he says several times in this section, it's like, oh, I didn't care about money. And then there are a lot of people who have the experience that a lack of money is what keeps them from freedom, because they feel like I can't say yes to things because I don't have the money to
Sure.
say yes,
Oh, I've
right?
had that one. Yeah.
And then there's the freedom. I got an email one time from a young lady who was probably, I think she was 15, and she had heard the podcast,
Nice.
and she emailed me asking if I could help her because she just wanted some freedom.
Yeah.
And her parents, she said her parents were strict, and she had a little boyfriend, and she wanted to be able to spend time with him, but her parents were very overprotective, she said, and they weren't giving her the freedom that she wanted. And she always had to have parents around, and she said, I want to be able to go to his house and just watch a movie, and she had all these things that she wanted. And so I was like in this spot of, I wanted to write back to her and give her some good advice. She asked me for advice. But I also wanted to recognize that she's a minor, and I'd never want to give anybody advice to be disobedient to their parents' rules. And so what I advised her is that, and I said, I want you to be very respectful of any of the rules and regulations that your parents have in place for you. But I also want you to just focus on where you already have freedom. Do you have freedom to wear your hair the way you want it? Do you have freedom to open the refrigerator and eat what you want to eat? Do you have freedom to wear the outfit you want to wear today? Do you have freedom to use whatever color ink you want on your homework? In other words, find these places where you do have the freedom to make choices, and then appreciate them a little bit more. And be glad that you have those freedoms that you do have, and that you do enjoy. Can you stay up to what bedtime you want? Like, I don't know the answers to those questions. But I get the sense that if this 15-year-old young lady was able to email me, that she has some freedom.
That's
right?
true.
She sent me a letter.
Right.
And so that's the advice, is that thing we want. I even do this with people who are looking for a mate. I ask them what they want in a partner. Make a list, and then find all those things where you already have them. Do you want somebody with a good sense of humor? Well, who do you know in your life that has a good sense of humor and that always just cracks you up, right? Once we can start appreciating the vibration of that thing, it will show up more often.
And I have to admit, I'm sympathetic to the 15-year-old. In fact, her story reminds me of an old Brian Wilson song, Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Oh, wouldn't it be nice? The whole song is about teenage love, and wouldn't it be nice if we were free to, we were older, and we were free to, freed of all our parents' restrictions, so we could just be together and live our life together and all that stuff.
Anybody that's been a teenager probably can commiserate. I'm making air quotes, but can understand that sense of, it often gets labeled rebellion, when really all it is a natural, hardwired in process of us becoming autonomous.
That's right. That's exactly right.
We start wanting to make our own choices, and it's a great thing that we start wanting to do that, because at some point we need to make our own choices, and we need to be able to take care of ourselves. And so, it's a process, and I can feel both sides of it, because I've been a parent and I've been a teenager.
Yeah. I have not been a parent, although I have been involved in the opening of a school where there were a lot of kids involved. So in that sense, I had, that connection to it. And I've told you about it. This is a very alternative form of school. My thing, I like reminding the parents that they want their kids to become autonomous. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you made the ideal point. The kids do need to become autonomous. And the simple fact is, the sooner the better. The sooner that they learn their autonomy, the better they're going to be at it. It's the
Believe me, nobody wants a child that never became autonomous.
Oh, God, no. God, no. And you certainly don't want one who takes, into their 20s or 30s.
I should rephrase that. I don't want to say no one wants that child. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
What we want for our children is for them to be successful in life.
Exactly.
Right? In life. And that means they find joy and freedom and growth. And for them to find that, I think we have to be willing to allow them to find it.
I agree. I think it's actually the best way to respect a child is to, as hard as this may be for some parents to hear, is to learn to trust them. If you really
Yes.
believe in your child, then you really have to believe in your child. You can't just if you don't if you say that you believe in your child but your action says otherwise, you're in that realm of lack. We don't really think about it that way, but that's really the case. So, when a parent really deep down isn't trusting their child to grow in the way that the child needs to grow, we're stuck with this lack idea. Oh God, I mean, if I don't hold the reins and if I don't maintain the discipline, the child's going to lack the tools they need in order to get somewhere.
Yeah, it's sometimes a tender area because as parents, we have hardwired into us, and just as human beings, I mean, not just parents, we all have it. We have empathy and we have the desire to protect and to give our children and our communities, whatever's best for them and
Yes.
to take care of them and to see them be healthy. And some of that, desire to be protective, when it's not in balance, and like you said, when there's no trust there, it can not give us the outcome we want, the outcome we think we want.
That's
and
right.
so then we have the other side of it too. We have the person that's becoming an adult that, wants to make their own choices and decisions. It all works out usually.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it really does.
So,
One way or another. I mean, if there are any cases where you could argue that they don't work out, it's with kids who end up in the foster care system and who don't get adopted. And all you have to do is talk to Joel, who has years of experience working with kids like that, and you begin to realize that even that case doesn't apply. It's not like it's an exception to the rule. The same process still happens there, and all those kids need is one brief, glimpse of freedom and possibility. And no matter how bad their life has been, and no matter how much trouble they've gotten into, and how much trouble they've created for others, and what their likelihood is of going to prison or anything else, just getting that one glimpse of real freedom and trust, they turn around on a dime. That's the thing I take away from Joel's stories, and he has a lot of them that he tells me. How these kids just, all they have to do is understand how the world really ticks from a law of attraction perspective, and they turn the whole thing around. I mean, that's what his story was in the book that we just published. His contribution was the story about one of his clients who he gave him a false name and changed some of the details of the story to protect the kid. But basically, this kid who had been through the mill, he'd been through the ringer, and had no confidence, and he was a troublemaker, and he just, everything was wrong with this kid. He was on 1,000 medications. I mean, just really in a bad place. Joel had a session with him, explained to him how the law of attraction really works, how life really works, and the kid turned his entire life around. And virtually did it himself. I mean, Joel was blown away at how quickly he did it. So really, there's no such thing as a kid who can't benefit from being given the trust, from being given the knowledge and what it takes to get what you want out of life the right way.
one of the things I always remind myself with in the business of coaching, working with a client, is that a client can only go as far as I can see for him while he's my client in the work we do. I don't mean that, that he can't do anything he wants. But what I'm saying is it's important for a coach to hold the space of success for this person.
Yes.
If I have a client and over here, I'm really thinking, oh, he's just never going to amount to anything. He's never going to be able to attract a mate. He's never well, then I'm not the right coach for him. I need to be able to see success for this person. I need to be able to see, yes, he is creative. Yes, he is whole. Yes, he can make good decisions for himself. Yes, he can be successful. And that's the same kind of mind space that I attempted to have all the time with my children. And it's not always easy.
No.
It's not always easy because we're protective.
No. Oh, yeah.
But it's funny. I haven't thought about that young lady in a long time that sent me the email.
Yeah. Did you tell me about her? I don't even remember that one.
It's been a long time, and I think I need to find that email and reach out to her and see how she's doing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, because she's a minor, we'll have to change the details, but I'd love to know that story.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to know if she's had some success in feeling like she has a little more freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very cool. Very good.
So the section that I think we have time to cover.
Okay.
Because I think it would be a good section to end today, the podcast with. Just because the title of it is I Want My Life to Feel Good.
Yeah, I mean, that fits right in with your mantra, right? That you've been doing the last 10 days.
I love my life. Abraham says, when choosing a career or when doing the things that your work currently requires, if your dominant intent is to feel joy while you are doing the work, your triad of intentions will come quickly and easily into alignment. Because in your accomplishment of feeling good, you come into complete alignment with the broader non-physical aspects of your being. That alignment then allows the expansion toward all of the things that your life has helped you identify that you want. So your growth becomes swift and satisfying. Freedom is the basis of your life experience. It's not something that you have to earn. Joy is your objective. Growth is the result of all of that. But if you believe that you're unworthy and that you set out to prove worthiness through action, you cannot find your balance. Often we explain this perfect triad of intentions of freedom and growth and joy, but most physical beings then turn their attention immediately to the idea of growth in their misguided attempt of proving worthiness that has never been in question. You have nothing to prove to anyone and nothing to justify. Your reason for existence needs no justification, for your very existence is justification enough.
Oh, I like that last paragraph. I like that one a lot, particularly those last two sentences. Because
I like it so much that I think that next time we'll just start with that.
We'll just start with that, right? There you go. We should start every episode with that. That's really good. You have nothing to prove to anyone. Life to feel good. Yeah. You have nothing to prove to anyone and nothing to justify. Your reason for existence needs no justification. In fact, I just take out the word reasons for, because you could just say your existence needs no justification. For your very existence is justification enough.
Isn't that beautiful?
I just imagine to myself, what if everybody really got that?
Yeah.
What a wonderful world this would be. I mean, not that it's a bad world now. I don't mean to imply that. But, I mean, this world would just be leaps and bounds better if people really got that.
I think we talked about this maybe yesterday. Just how easily people slide into like having to defend themselves or prove themselves.
Yep.
And the worthiness thing. I used to make, years and years ago, I used to make a to-do list. And I think half the reason was so I could leave it here on the desk and I could check all the things off and I would be like justifying my existence. See how hard I worked? See how many things I did? And it's so not necessary.
No, it isn't necessary at all. In fact, it isn't even healthy. There are experts who will claim that it is. There are experts, efficiency experts and goal setting experts and so forth who will tell you just how important that is. And I always cringed at those exercises of, keeping long lists and checking things off the list and saying, oh, I feel so good about checking things off the list. I didn't feel good about it at all. It was not enjoyable to me. So how could that possibly be helpful to me? And yet that was their argument. Oh, well. The good thing is I know differently now. The good thing is I understand how law of attraction and deliberate creation work. And that's why I do a podcast.
And we don't have to prove ourselves or prove our existence or justify anything.
Not at all.
It's just not about that. We came here to experience joy.
But you do have to do one thing. You have to tell people who are interested in a little personal coaching help how they can reach you.
Oh, they can find me online, cindiechavez.com. It's CINDIECHAVEZ.com. And just reach out and say hello. I'd love to hear from you.
Just like the 15-year-old girl. I mean, if a 15-year-old can do it, you can do it, right?
That's right.
She's already set the standard, so it's not tough. Cindie, this has been great. I can't wait to do it again with you next week.
I'll be back next week.
And we hope you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.